2005 was quite the year for queer films. Transamerica, Kinky Boots, Rent, Breakfast on Pluto being a few of the films that were released during this year. Brokeback Mountain, a film that I reference in not only one but two videos posted to this channel, was also released during this year. However, there is one 2005 film in particular that sparked a fierce cultural debate over queer love and has recently captured my own curiosity. And if the title of this video or the thumbnail didn't already give it away, that film is March of the Penguins. Exactly how this film got intertwined with the discourse of queer love, traditional family values, and parenting is what has especially sparked my interest. How and why did these flightless little birds become the symbol for the cause, whatever that cause may be? March of the Penguins is a French nature documentary released in 2005, written and directed by Luc Jacquet. It follows the difficult trek embarked on by emperor penguins in Antarctica each year. The audience follows the penguins through their stages of courtship, to their offspring production, to the necessary and multiple journeys the parents must make in order to keep their chick alive. The film became an international hit, earning a box office of around $127 million, and went on to win the 2006 Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature.
And the Oscar goes to March of the Penguins, Luc Jacquet and Yves Garandot.
It fared well with both critics and audience scores, with praise focusing on the heartwarming nature of the species against the harsh reality of the environment in which they lived. Allison Benedict of the Chicago Tribune wrote, "It's an incredible tale of virtue and perseverance, both for the emperor penguin and the untouched land, sparkling white and aqua, pristine and brutal." Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal wrote, "Watch them march to the very extremes of extremists, and it's easy to feel awe. Life must beget life, whatever the cost." Which are comments that are to be expected for a film about these cute creatures that survive in one of the most harshest environments on the planet. Director Jacquet said that his intention in creating March of the Penguins was to tell the story in the most simple and profound way, to leave it open to any reading. And any reading of the film is certainly what appeared. As the film garnered more attention, an unexpected wave of support for the film came from right-wing conservatives. One of the most influential of these came from the conservative film critic and radio host Michael Medved, who stated in an interview that March of the Penguins passionately affirms traditional norms like monogamy, sacrifice, and child-rearing, which went on to spark similar comments from other religious conservatives, with one minister even comparing the experience of the penguins to that of Christians. The penguin is falling behind is like some Christians falling behind. The path changes every year, yet they find their way, is like the Holy Spirit. Richard A. Blake said, "You get a sense of these animals, following their natural instincts, are really exercising virtue that for humans would be quite admirable." I could see it as a statement on monogamy or a condemnation of gay marriage. So in a sense, director Jacquet's goal of leaving the film open to any reading was definitely achieved. And while this reading of the film is certainly not the most outlandish take to ever be applied to a film, it certainly is a rudimentary one, as it lacks any scientific or logical ground once you think about it for more than a few minutes. Not to mention the fact that penguins had already been held up in culture as the symbol of queer love. Just prior to the release of March of the Penguins and the subsequent discourse of their supposed natural heteronormative and monogamous behaviors, penguins were enjoying the limelight as being the champions for devoted queer couples. With penguins like Wendell and Cass at the New York Aquarium on Coney Island, and the more famous successors Roy and Silo of the New York City Central Park Zoo. Roy and Silo would eventually have their love narrative immortalized in the children's novel And Tango Makes Three by Peter Parnell and Justin Richardson, which follows the couple as they raise their adopted child Tango. The pair was given an egg which they both helped to hatch. Harvey Fierstein is quoted on the blurb of the book saying, "This wonderful story of devotion is heartwarming proof that Mother Nature knows best," showing that before right-wing Christians sought penguins to prove their beliefs, the queer community were elevating penguins as proof to support their own beliefs. Unfortunately, however, as the love story of Roy and Silo continued, it was eventually and quite dramatically revealed that Silo left Roy for another penguin named Scrappy, a female penguin no less, which undoubtedly upset the queer community who were desperate to hold the penguins up as a natural justification for queer love against the critics, the very same critics that would use the penguin as their own mascot. This adorable symbol and example for queer activists to use against the right wing was suddenly rendered null and void. But then, in another dramatic turn of events, Silo left Scrappy and went back to Roy. So maybe this was a victory for queer romances after all, one which fully embraces the B of the LGBTQIA community. But after the dust of the Roy and Silo relationship has settled, both arguments on either side of the penguin symbolism are going to have a pretty hard time proving the legitimacy of any form of human relationship or dynamic simply because humans are not penguins. Birds, penguins included, don't have external genitalia like mammals. Instead, they have a cloaca, which is a single opening that does the entire job of what would take 2 to 3 openings in a human being. So applying human gender and sexuality constructs onto penguins, and any animal in fact, in order to prove the validity of any sort of human behaviors is not only illogical, but can actually be quite dangerous. There is a belief that patriarchal families and heterosexual couples are not only perceived as right, but as natural. And this has a lot to do with the fact that these institutions are believed to be divinely created, and thus natural in the eyes of those who believe. God created all, God is natural, all created by God is natural. Then, the natural argument is given further weight with the idea that heterosexual love is right because it is a form of sexuality that is reproductive. But this is not an overall convincing argument. As Noel Sturgeon states in Penguin Family Values, sex is not simply about human reproduction in the sense of having babies. After all, given contemporary reproductive technologies and practices, as well as the fact that sexual desire is far more complex and motivated by far more than the potential for pregnancy, actual heterosexual sex is not so closely connected to reproduction as these arguments about its naturalness want us to believe. Otherwise, no heterosexual would have any kind of sex other than sex that would produce a child. So procreation cannot be the defining characteristic of natural sex. But arguing that queer sex is natural falters to the same degree. While it may seem like a good thing to argue the idea that queerness is biological, inherent, and therefore natural, this path can lead to a very slippery slope. Roger Lancaster explains this best in his book The Trouble with Nature, Sex in Science and Popular Culture. At best, the new innatist claims, i.e. that homosexuality is genetically determined, carve out a protected niche for homosexual exceptionalism. At worst, they reify the prevailing logic of heterosexual metaphysics and thus actively contribute to the reproduction of an exclusionary, homophobic, and sexist environment. In such a paradigm, every conventional gender norm, down to the last stereotype, is attributed to a fixed, immutable biology, norms reified, men and women trapped in their natures, a radical division of gay people from straight people, of queer sex from normal sex, of our experiences from theirs. One scarcely has to imagine extreme scenarios to see that this is not good for gay people, or for straight people either. Human sexuality is dynamic, just like our environments, which is why attempts to find the so-called gay gene have been for naught. And so in place of a biological answer within ourselves, we instead look for the biological proof externally, in nature, in penguins. But as mentioned, this is not such a great idea. Regardless, though, of the folly or danger in making penguins symbolic of human love, we are desperate to find it, whether it be Roy and Silo, March of the Penguins, or Happy Feet, which would come out in 2006. This is because humans have a strong ability to anthropomorphize animals due to our cognitive biases, and so it is no surprise that we see in penguins proof of our own personal beliefs. Matthew Hudson in The 7 Laws of Magical Thinking states that anthropomorphization is not only unavoidable in religion, for example, but foundational. If God were merely an impersonal phenomenon, to whom would one pray? Some people try to avoid reducing God to a human-like agent by denying human definable qualities, by saying he is everything and nothing. But such an entity is incomprehensible and thus meaningless. A similar idea can be seen when it comes to nature. We refer to it as Mother Nature, not only as something human, but as something maternal, similar to how humans see God as the Holy Father, something paternal. We personalize these concepts that have a presence beyond our comprehension, like God and nature, into something more personal, even through our language, by applying personal pronouns to them, referring them often as he or she rather than it. In place of a purely scientific comprehension of everything that we can't understand, humans populated the world with angels and demons and gods and other supernatural entities that could be influenced in a similar way to which humans are influenced. Christopher Badcock states in The Imprinted Brain that we do this so the personal needs, failings, and frustrations beyond the remedy of mere mortals can be readdressed. Which is how we ended up with penguins representing everything we hope to reaffirm within ourselves but cannot prove with science. That what we are doing and what we believe in is not only correct and supported by the sacred environments around us, but something that can be influenced through protest and support. But we need to be careful that these personalizations don't slip into a harmful realm where we begin to marginalize certain communities. Although it may seem tempting to look at a relationship between two penguins, for example, and to begin to see one's own ideas of love, marriage, and parenthood on display, it is important to remember that humans of all beliefs are a species that is not necessarily reflected in nature, but rather a part of a complex, interconnected relationship with nature and all of its many other biological entities. So what should we really make of the penguin's mating habits? The answer, I believe, is summed up in the wise words of the then vice president of Warner Independent, Laura Kim. You know what? They're just birds.